Before 1781, the scheme was complete. Every sign had exactly one ruler, and the arrangement closed on itself perfectly. Then it stopped being complete, and it has never been repaired. If you have read anything about your sign, you may have run into a small contradiction. Some sources say Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. Others say Uranus. Some hedge and say both. The same thing happens with Scorpio, where you will find Mars or Pluto, and with Pisces, where you will find Jupiter or Neptune. 3 signs, 2 answers each, and almost nobody explains where the second answer came from. The explanation is good, and it is not really about astrology. It is about what happens to a closed system when the world adds something to it, which is a thing that happens to closed systems fairly often and rarely goes smoothly. Start with what the scheme was built on. For nearly all of this tradition's history, there were 7 moving bodies. Not 7 planets in the modern sense, 7 things in the sky that change position against the fixed stars, and that you can see without any instrument. The Sun and the Moon. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. That is the whole list, and it was the whole list for about 2,000 years. Everything the tradition built, it built for 7. Not as a limitation it was aware of, but as the shape of the sky as anybody could observe it. Nobody was leaving anything out, because there was nothing to leave out. Now watch the arithmetic, because it is the part that makes the scheme feel designed. 12 signs, 7 bodies. That does not divide. So the scheme does something neat. The 2 lights, sun and moon, take 1 sign each. The remaining 5 take 2 apiece. 1 plus 1 plus 5 times 2. That is 12 exactly. Nothing left over and nothing doubled up. A scheme that closes like that is either a very good fit or a very good piece of design. Either way, it is not an accident. Somebody arranged this so it would come out even. The evenness is doing work. It is what makes the whole thing feel like a system rather than a list. Here is where it closes. The moon takes Cancer. The sun takes Leo. 2 adjacent signs, side by side, and they are the center of the whole arrangement. Everything else radiates outward from that pair, in both directions at once. Go 1 sign up from Leo and 1 sign down from Cancer, and the same planet takes both. Then the next planet takes the next pair out, and so on 5 times until the circle is full. Fold the wheel along the line between Cancer and Leo, and every planet lands on itself. The scheme is a mirror. That is worth seeing drawn, because almost nobody has. The version most people meet is a table of 12 rows, which hides the structure completely. Drawn as a circle, it becomes obvious in a second. And the order those 5 go in is not arbitrary either. They are ranked by how long each one takes to go round the sky. The moon takes 27 days. Mercury 88. Venus 225. The sun 365. Then Mars at 687 days, Jupiter at nearly 12 years, Saturn at nearly 30. That ranking is the order they get assigned in, walking outward. Fastest nearest the center, slowest furthest away. Note where the sun falls in that list. 4th of 7, right in the middle. This is a ranking by apparent speed, not by distance. The sun sitting in the middle is the giveaway. From a modern point of view, the sun is the center of everything. Here it is simply the 4th fastest thing in the sky, which is exactly what it looks like from the ground. So the scheme was complete, symmetric, and closed. Then, on a March night in 1781, William Herschel found something moving that should not have been there. Uranus. the first planet discovered in recorded history, and the first thing to arrive that the scheme had no room for. Neptune followed in 1846, found by calculation before it was found by looking. Pluto in 1930. 3 new bodies inside 150 years, after 2 millennia of exactly 7. It is hard to overstate how sudden that is. A scheme that had been stable since, before anybody wrote it down, acquired 3 unhoused members within a few generations. And here is the problem in one sentence. There were no free signs. The scheme had used all 12. Everyone already had an owner, and the arrangement only worked because it used them all exactly once. You cannot add a body to a closed system without taking something out of it, or without giving 2 things the same job. That is the whole of the argument that follows, and it has been running for 200 years. And it is not a silly argument. Both of the available moves cost something real, and there is no version where the scheme survives untouched. The traditions split, and it split in a way worth understanding. One branch looked at each new planet, decided which existing sign it most resembled, and moved in. Uranus, disruptive and sudden, was given Aquarius, which had been Saturn's. Neptune, dissolving and oceanic, was given Pisces, which had been Jupiter's. Pluto, hidden and extreme, was given Scorpio, which had been Mars's. The other branch declined. The scheme was symmetric because it had 7 bodies, and adding 3 does not make it more symmetric. It makes it not a scheme. Both branches are still practiced, and both call themselves astrology. That is unusual. Most disciplines resolve this kind of thing eventually, or split into 2 named things. This one did neither, and the result is that a beginner meets both without being told there were 2. Which is why your sign has 2 rulers, if it is one of the 3. Aquarius, Saturn, or Uranus. Pisces, Jupiter, or Neptune. Scorpio, Mars, or Pluto. The other 9 signs are not affected at all, and nobody argues about them. If you have ever wondered why the disagreement seems to cluster, that is why. It is not sloppiness in the sources. 3 signs sit on an unresolved question. The rest sit on settled ground, and nobody has anything to argue about there. Take Aquarius and read it the old way. Saturn is the ruler. Saturn is limit, structure, time, the thing that says no. An Aquarius under Saturn is the sign of boundaries and long-run order, cold, formal, and concerned with what holds. That reading is not a modern invention drifting backwards. It is what the sign meant for most of the tradition's life. Saturn was the only answer available. Whatever you make of it, it is internally consistent. Saturn rules 2 signs and Aquarius is one of them, and the reading follows from the planet. Now read the same sign the modern way. Uranus is the ruler. Uranus is disruption, sudden reversal, the break with what came before. An Aquarius under Uranus is the sign of the outsider and the inventor. That is the reading most people have encountered, and it is the one that gets printed. It is also internally consistent, and it follows from its planet just as neatly. The trouble is only that it follows from a different planet. Neither reading is being careless. Each is doing the same thing correctly from a different starting point. Put the 2 next to each other, and the problem is obvious. Structure against disruption. What holds against what breaks. These are not 2 shades of one idea. They are close to opposites. A reader given both, with no account of where the second came from, is being handed a contradiction and told it is a nuance. That is the thing worth objecting to. Not either reading, but the presentation of both at once, as though they were layers of a single idea. Which raises one last thing, and it is the most revealing part of the whole story. Pluto was reclassified in 2006. It is a dwarf planet now. There turned out to be several similar objects out there, and it is no longer counted among the planets. Astrology did not change anything. Pluto still rules Scorpio in every modern source you will find. The reclassification, which was a real decision about a real body, passed through without leaving a mark. That is worth sitting with, whatever you think of the subject. A system that takes its members from astronomy, but does not take its revisions from astronomy, is telling you what kind of system it is. It is not an observational system with a symbolic layer on top. It is a symbolic system that once took its vocabulary from observation and has not gone back. So, 3 things. The old scheme was closed. 7 bodies and 12 signs. The 2 lights take 1 each. The 5 planets take 2 apiece, ranked by apparent speed, mirrored around Cancer and Leo. 3 discoveries broke it because there was nowhere to put them. Both answers that followed are still in circulation. That is why 3 signs carry a second ruler and why the rest carry none. None of that tells you which reading is right. It does tell you why there are 2. Next time, where the 12 signs came from in the first place, and the piece of calendar arithmetic that left 1 constellation out of the list.